Welcome to The Home. I'm your host, David O'Reilly. As outlined last week, for the next month, until the end of the European and local elections, we are going on the road speaking to candidates and the public as the election campaigns unfold. First, a short roundup of the news. Protesters at Trinity College, Dublin, ended their blockade of the Book of Kells after the university agreed to their demands during negotiations. The 5-day protest, sparked by the war in Gaza, called for the university to divest from Israeli companies involved in the occupied Palestinian territories and listed on the UN blacklist. Trinity has committed to completing this divestment by June, as confirmed in a university statement, which also mentioned plans to resume normal operations. Issues of migrant identities came to the fore in the past week when a man was jailed for attempted rape. The Garda told the court that they could not confirm the identity or nationality of Mohammed, aged 26. Mr. Mohammed had previously been refused asylum in Italy, Germany and France before coming to Ireland on a false Swedish passport. His Irish application for asylum has still not been decided. In another case, a man being held in Cork prison on theft charges, whose identity is unknown to authorities, proved to be a match for 27 different names across England and France after it was cross-checked through Interpol. Sergeant John Kelleher said at Cork District Court, "We don't know who he is." Meanwhile, a total of 163 people have been moved to state-provided accommodation following the dismantling of the latest makeshift migrant camp along Dublin's Grand Canal. Taoiseach Simon Harris described the multi-agency operation as a Team Ireland response. These encampments have developed since a large number of migrants have been arriving to Ireland via the UK, fleeing the British government Rwanda deportation policy. In a related matter, Michael McNamara TD has disclosed to the Dáil that a human trafficking ring based in London is deceiving individuals by promising them work in Ireland and directing them to International Protection Office as their contact address. AstraZeneca is withdrawing its COVID vaccine worldwide after admitting that it can cause a rare and dangerous side effect, which has been linked to 80 deaths in Britain. This decision follows the company's voluntary withdrawal of its marketing authorization in the European Union, effective today. Similar withdrawals are expected in other countries where the vaccine has been approved. The vaccine, developed in collaboration with Oxford University, had previously been a major component in global vaccination efforts against COVID-19. As protests in Ireland increase, the coverage of these protests and depiction of the protesters by the media, both here and overseas, has become a story in itself. To discuss this, we are joined by Gearoid O'Colmáin, a foreign correspondent from Paris. Good evening, Gearoid.
Good evening.
As protests in Ireland against uncontrolled mass migration are increasing, the mass media are saying that these protests are motivated by hatred, bigotry and xenophobia. Would you agree with that assessment?
Not at all. The protests are motivated by the fact that Irish people can't get housing that they do find in places like Dublin, the big cities in particular, Dublin, Cork, is way overpriced because vulture capitalists are basically buying up massive amounts of property in these cities and driving up prices. So we have a major housing crisis for the start, and Irish people can't get housing, and people from other countries come in here and get social housing, and they're being favoured over Irish people. And this is basically what's causing mass uprising. This is a very unjust policy. The government is there to serve the interests of its own people first, and everyone else can be dealt with after that. We have the reverse of that. So that cannot last. It cannot. You cannot run a country like that. And you're obviously going to get, in time, mass protests against that, because people are seeing it all over the country. They're seeing it in small towns. They're seeing it in villages all over Ireland. And this is something that is being replicated all over Europe and in the developed first world, I would say. So this is a global policy of mass immigration, uncontrolled mass immigration, of borderless countries that become part of international trading blocs, where there is no sovereignty, where the parliament is essentially a postage stamp parliament. It has a rubber stamp parliament that has no sovereignty and no capacity to take any decisions in favour of the people. So this is essentially what's happening. It's going to continue as the mass immigration continues. We have people coming into Ireland who are burning papers, their passports and so on. This can't go on.
A Canadian reporter at the Dublin protests last week pointed out that so-called left-wing or anti-racists were staging a counter-protest waving Palestinian flags. What relevance does Palestine have to what's happening in Ireland?
Well, I think Palestine is quite relevant due to the fact that that reporter from Canada runs a news agency, which is basically an ultra-Zionist news agency. And there are several of those media organizations that claim to be independent and alternative media, but their main purpose is to do foreign propaganda for Israel and for the Israeli colonization of Palestine and the continued occupation and genocide. Now, the reporters, the protesters in question here are usually young people who are either not very well educated on the history of the Middle East and are on basically being paid by international NGOs. The question of the occupation of Palestine is deeply relevant to Ireland due to the fact that Palestine essentially had its population replaced. When the Zionists went to Palestine in 1948, they set up a colony and they basically dispossessed the Palestinian people. And so that is essentially what is happening now on a global scale. What we're seeing is the native populations of each country are undergoing a form of warfare, psychological warfare, but also population replacement. So this is the relevance of Palestine. And of course, the agencies as well that support that the agencies are overwhelmingly Zionist. They are linked to international finance. And you will find that both sides of the debate are controlled by Zionists. On the one hand, you have fake left-wing fake anti-Zionist media who promote a rather asinine form of anti-racism, which is not anti-racism at all. And on the other hand, you have these Zionist infiltrators of patriotic movements who try to turn people's attention away from the international oligarchs and towards a kind of hatred of Muslims in particular, and anything that basically promotes the Zionist cause. So, the important thing here is to be coherent, to be honest and coherent about not just the situation in our perspective, but also the way in which this is being manipulated by interest groups. And in this case, this is an interest group. Obviously, protesters waving Palestinian flags and LGBT flags, we can laugh about it, but this is youth. This is the confused youth that we have in our country today. You only have to look at the kind of culture or anti-culture that the Irish government promotes. You know, pop singers who are mentally deranged, roaring and screaming. This is the kind of thing that the Taoiseach says is an example for our youth. So that's a form of warfare on the Irish people. It's a form of psychological warfare. So the Israelis do this all the time in Palestine. They promote trash in the Palestinian communities in order to break down their capacity to resist the occupation. Ireland is undergoing its own occupation. The destiny of the world is Gaza. I've said this for years. Gaza is the world if globalization is not stopped.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Weather with the Hum. Let's have a look at the weather forecast for the weekend and the upcoming week. Today promises warm and dry conditions with long spells of delightful spring sunshine. We're looking at highest temperatures ranging from 17 to 23 degrees Celsius, accompanied by light to moderate southerly breezes. There's just a small chance of coastal mist creeping in. Moving into tonight, we'll experience dry weather with clear spells. However, patches of mist and fog will develop in the south early in the night, spreading more widely overnight. Lowest temperatures will be between 7 to 10 degrees Celsius, with light variable breezes prevailing. Saturday morning we'll see patches of mist and fog clearing, paving the way for another warm and dry day with generous spells of sunshine. However, as evening approaches, cloud cover will increase from the west, accompanied by some showers in the northwest. Highest temperatures will range from 18 to 22 degrees Celsius with moderate southerly breezes. Saturday night will see a further increase in cloud cover, with showers developing overnight, primarily over the western half of the country. Lowest temperatures will range from 9 to 12 degrees Celsius with light variable breezes prevailing. And looking ahead, we can expect a shift towards more unsettled weather from Sunday onwards, with rain and showers at times. Temperatures will also cool down slightly. Well, summer is off to a great start, and at the Hum we've been enjoying the fine weather. At the border of the sea and the land grows this lovely flower called sea thrift. Another beautiful flower unique to the aquatic landscape is flag iris. Flag iris in Irish is felistrum. Well, thanks for tuning in. That wraps up your weather forecast. Have a great weekend. Back to the studio.
In summary, we had a brief roundup of the news from the Trinity College occupation, the extent of false migrant identities, the camp clearance on the Grand Canal, and the worldwide withdrawal of the AstraZeneca vaccine because of its dangerous side effects. We prepare to go on the road for a month of European and local elections. And as the Irish protests have gained attention across the world, we go to our correspondent Gearoid O'Colmáin in Paris for the international perspective. And as we finally feel the heat of summer, we had a glimpse at nature where the land meets the water as we heard from Tara all the weather for the coming weekend. I'm your host, David O'Reilly, wishing you a weekend in the sunshine, and do tune in again next week with the hum. Jerry Shachtana Mahigev.